There's a war happening inside your mind right now. And the terrifying part? You didn't start it, and you have no idea it's happening. According to Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, everything you do, everything you think, every reaction you have, is not truly under your control. From the way you glance at a stranger to the career you chose, Freud believed it's all being manipulated by something far more primal, your unconscious mind. But what if your daily behaviors, even the ones that seem completely logical or moral, are actually the polished masks of disturbing, suppressed desires? What if your sense of identity is just a defense mechanism to keep your darker impulses locked away? Freud argued that human behavior is just the tip of a massive psychological iceberg. Below the surface lies a storm of forbidden urges, unresolved childhood conflicts, and repressed desires, all fighting for release. And here's the most disturbing part. Even your dreams, your slip of the tongue, or that sudden emotional reaction you couldn't explain, they're all breadcrumbs. Clues that your hidden self is trying to break through. So what exactly are these hidden desires Freud spoke of? Why did he believe that our behavior is merely a disguise for the things we secretly want, and often fear? And more importantly, what does that say about you? If you're fascinated by the secrets your mind might be hiding from you, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. We're diving deep into Freud's dark psychological universe, and trust me, you're going to start seeing yourself and others in a completely different way. The unconscious empire. You like to believe you're in control. You weigh your options, make logical decisions, think things through. Right? But Freud would smirk at that belief. Because from his perspective, you're more like a puppet, and the strings are being pulled by something you can't even see. That hidden force? The unconscious mind. Now, Freud didn't just stumble onto this idea. He built an entire empire of thought on the premise that your conscious awareness, the part of your mind you're using right now to listen to this, is just the surface. A thin, flickering candle in a vast, dark cathedral of thoughts, instincts, and urges you've never even met. According to Freud, the unconscious is not just a passive memory vault. It's active. It wants things. It desires. It fears. And it shapes your behavior more than your reasoning ever could. You might think you're being kind, generous, or moral, but Freud would ask, why do you need to be seen that way? What unresolved emotion, what childhood wound, what hidden guilt is that behavior compensating for? He believed that every behavior is motivated, but not always by what you think is motivating it. That awkward laugh, that overreaction, that obsession with being liked. It could be the unconscious crying out from the shadows, manipulating your behavior to serve its own hidden agenda. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine someone who becomes a doctor. On the surface, it's noble, helping others, saving lives. But Freud would look deeper. Maybe this person grew up with emotionally distant parents, and now, unconsciously, they crave recognition. Healing others becomes their way of earning love they never received. The conscious story is service. But the unconscious truth? It might be validation. This is where Freud starts to get uncomfortable. Because he didn't just apply this thinking to trauma or insecurity. He applied it to everything. He claimed that even the most mundane actions could be rooted in something primitive. A handshake? Power display. A joke? A veiled insult. Even your most innocent dreams might be harboring sexual or aggressive urges you've spent your whole life trying to suppress. And you can't reason your way out of it. Because the unconscious isn't ruled by logic. It doesn't speak English. It speaks in dreams, symptoms, obsessions, slips, fears, and strange attractions. So here's the unsettling truth. You are not who you think you are. You are who your unconscious needs you to be. And until you face what's buried down there, it continues to rule your world, silently, invisibly, with absolute authority. Repression. The mind's dirty secret. Picture your mind as a courtroom. Now imagine that every dark impulse you've ever had, every forbidden urge, inappropriate thought, unacceptable craving, is being shoved out of the courtroom by a panicked judge, slamming the door shut, pretending none of it ever existed. That's repression. Freud saw repression as one of the most essential and dangerous defense mechanisms of the mind. It's how your psyche hides thoughts that are too disturbing to face. And it doesn't ask for your permission. It buries things before you even realize they were there. But here's the catch. Just because something is repressed doesn't mean it's gone. It's still alive, just not in your awareness. It sinks into the unconscious, quietly festering, like toxic waste under the floorboards of your personality. And eventually it leaks. Have you ever had a sudden emotional breakdown over something small? Or gotten irrationally angry at someone without fully understanding why? Freud would say, that's the unconscious pushing repressed material to the surface. You think you're reacting to the moment, but your mind is digging up buried content that's never been processed. Let's look at a classic example. A young boy grows up with feelings of anger toward his father, maybe because he felt overshadowed, criticized, or neglected. But those feelings are taboo. He's supposed to love his father, not resent him. So the anger is repressed. Years later, as an adult, he finds himself struggling with authority figures. He gets fired repeatedly, clashes with bosses, sabotages himself. On the surface, it's about his bad luck or personality differences. But deep down, that unresolved anger is still controlling his behavior in disguise. That's the thing about repression. It never forgets. It just transforms. A repressed fear becomes anxiety. A repressed desire becomes obsession. A repressed trauma becomes a symptom, a phobia, a neurosis. Freud even argued that repressed sexual and aggressive drives could manifest as physical symptoms, a theory that, at the time, shocked the medical world. He worked with patients who experienced blindness, paralysis, or seizures with no medical cause. And through psychoanalysis, he traced those symptoms back to buried psychological conflicts. Now think about what this means for you. What have you locked away because it was too much? What if the parts of yourself you've tried hardest to forget are the ones driving your daily life from behind the curtain? That's the dirty secret of repression. It doesn't erase, it hides. And what's hidden always finds a way to come back. Slips, dreams, and desires. Have you ever called someone by the wrong name, but somehow it felt like the truth? Or had a dream so bizarre, yet weirdly specific, that you couldn't shake it all day? Freud would smile at that and say, your unconscious just spoke. To him, these weren't accidents. They were messages. Let's start with what's now famously known as a Freudian slip. You're in a conversation and suddenly say the wrong word. Maybe something inappropriate or emotionally charged, and everyone laughs it off. Oops, just a slip of the tongue. But Freud didn't think it was random. He believed these slips reveal true thoughts that your conscious mind is trying to suppress. Your unconscious, tired of being ignored, finds cracks in your speech and forces its way through. Imagine someone says to their friend's wife, I'm so glad I married you. Met you. That might sound innocent, but Freud would say the unconscious desire leaked out. And no matter how fast you correct yourself, the truth already escaped. Now think about dreams. Freud called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. Because when you sleep, your inner guard falls. Your ego, the part that filters and censors your thoughts, finally shuts up. And that's when the unconscious comes alive. But it doesn't speak clearly. It speaks in symbols. You don't dream about your deepest fear as it is. Instead, you might dream of falling, drowning, being chased. All metaphorical expressions of real emotional conflicts. A snake in a dream might represent sexuality. A locked door might symbolize repression. You dream of a funeral, but it's actually about the death of a relationship. Here's the haunting part. Freud believed that every dream is a wish, even the nightmares. That terrifying chase? Maybe your unconscious wants you to feel something intense. Maybe your mind is punishing you, or even indulging a hidden fantasy. He claimed that no dream is ever neutral. They're all attempts by your unconscious to fulfill a desire that the waking mind refuses to allow. And what about those weird dreams that make no sense? That's called dream disguise. The unconscious intentionally scrambles the content, rearranging ideas into bizarre, disjointed images so the conscious mind won't be alarmed. But under that surreal surface, there's always a motive. Freud would tell you, Pay attention. You're revealing your secrets every night, while pretending you don't know them during the day. So the next time you slip up in a sentence, or wake up from a dream that leaves your heart pounding, ask yourself, what am I really trying to say? And why am I so afraid to admit it? The ID, ego, and superego war. Imagine three voices inside your head. One of them is wild, demanding, and doesn't care about consequences. The second is strict, judgmental, and obsessed with what's right. The third? Exhausted, constantly negotiating, trying to keep the peace. Welcome to Freud's most iconic and unsettling model of the human psyche. The ID, the superego, and the ego. Let's start with the ID. The ID is the primitive core of your mind, the part you were born with. It doesn't speak language. It doesn't understand later. It only wants one thing: pleasure. Now, hunger, sex, aggression, desire, revenge. The ID is a toddler with no patience and no ethics. If it could speak, it would scream, "I want what I want, and I don't care who gets hurt." Now enter the superego. This part develops later, shaped by your parents, culture, religion, all the rules you've absorbed. The superego is like an internal police officer mixed with a critical parent. Punishes you with guilt. It scolds you for even thinking about certain things. It whispers, "That's wrong. That's bad. You should be ashamed." Then there's the poor ego stuck in the middle. The ego is the mediator. It tries to satisfy the ID's cravings in socially acceptable ways while keeping the superego calm. It's the part of you that lies awake at night after a decision, torn between what you wanted to do and what you should have done. Now imagine these three forces constantly clashing in your everyday life. You see someone attractive. Your ID stirs. Go talk to them. Flirt. Take a risk. Your superego immediately tightens the leash. That's inappropriate. You're being disrespectful. Your ego? Stuck trying to balance desire and morality. Maybe I'll just start a polite conversation and see where it goes. This inner conflict is exhausting, and Freud believed it's the core of human anxiety. When the ID dominates, people become impulsive, reckless, even dangerous. When the superego takes over, people become rigid, anxious, guilt-ridden. When the ego is weak, mental breakdowns, neurotic behaviors, and identity crises can erupt. And here's the twist. Most of this war happens beneath awareness. You don't hear the voices clearly. You just feel the pressure, the hesitation, the shame, the urge, the guilt. Every emotional storm you experience is likely a ripple from this internal battlefield. Freud didn't sugarcoat it. He believed mental health isn't about finding happiness. It's about managing conflict. You don't erase the ID. You don't kill the superego. You learn to live with the tension, and hope your ego stays strong enough to keep both sides from tearing you apart. So next time you're feeling torn, caught between what you want, what you should, and what you can, remember, you're not broken. You're just human. And inside every human, there's a war. You are not who you think you are. You've spent your whole life building an identity. You tell yourself who you are. Your values. Your beliefs. What you like, what you fear, what you stand for. You have a story, your story, and you believe it's true. But Freud would argue, it's not. Not entirely. According to him, your personality, that carefully constructed you, is not the authentic self. It's a psychological cover story, created to manage deeper, hidden desires. Desires so uncomfortable, so unacceptable, that your mind had no choice but to disguise them as something else. You think you're in love with someone for their kindness, but your unconscious chose them because they resemble your father. You think you're pursuing a noble career, but your unconscious wants control. You think you're afraid of failure, but you might actually be more afraid of getting what you want, and what it might awaken inside you. Freud believed that the self we present to the world, even the self we think we are, is not the original version. It's edited, watered down, filtered through repression, guilt, childhood trauma, and social expectations. And here's where it gets unsettling. Some of the deepest parts of you were formed before you even had language. In his theory of psychosexual development, Freud argued that even infants begin life with raw, untamed drives, and that the way those drives are handled by parents and environment literally shape the structure of the adult mind. Neglect, overprotection, strict morality, shame around the body, all of it gets encoded before memory. You can't remember it, but it remembers you. Your preferences, anxieties, and even your sense of humor may be echoes of unresolved conflicts from early development. Your personality isn't just you being you. It's you surviving whatever your unconscious needed to survive. In a way, Freud's final message wasn't just psychological. It was philosophical, even existential. He challenged humanity to confront a terrifying idea. You are not the author of your own mind. You are the result of conflict, compromise, and concealment. You are a collage of censored memories, reshaped desires, and unconscious strategies to protect your fragile sense of self. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe understanding this, even just glimpsing it, gives you a kind of power. The power to stop pretending. The power to get curious. The power to trace your reactions not just to the moment, but to the deeper why behind them. Because once you know you're wearing a mask, you can decide when to take it off.